Hello and welcome to our program. We are delighted to have with us today Mr. Sheelkant Sharma, the former Senior Ambassador. And Sir, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So, Sir, the India-Australian Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement has been signed, ratified by their Parliament, and I think also done from every quarter. It was a unanimous agreement that this should go through. So what does it spell out for both countries, just as a broader perspective before we move into detail?
The speed with which it has been done ever since Albanese government came, and in April and now it is November, it shows the transformation of relationship between India and Australia. It is on a much better strategic footing, and the announcement made by the Prime Minister of Australia a few days back when the Parliament passed this bill was indicative of this. And then our PM's announcement also, emphasizes the comprehensive strategic partnership. So this Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement of a piece with a larger bilateral relationship, which is strategic in nature and is going to be comprehensive. There is the CECA, the Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement,
right,
which started discussion started in 2011, fell into, the back burner. Now it has been taken up. So it is also expected that in the new year, they will start work on the CECA. So this is a kind of it paves the way for a much larger relationship.
And also, so it was signed on the 2nd of April in 22 this year, and now it's moving this fast. And what do you think should be the timeline when it's actually being implemented now?
I think it is going to be implemented by end of December, early January. There is the Executive Council which will do the pro forma work, and then it will get going. So these tariff lines which are open now for duty-free access for Indian goods to Australia,
right,
and Australian goods and services to India, they will start working beginning of the next year. And as our Minister of Commerce indicated, our trade relationship might go from $24 billion to something like $45 to $50 billion.
Right.
Which is almost doubling in the coming 5 years.
Absolutely, and these are huge numbers. And when we look at actually boosting India's economic growth and trying to move it faster towards being a developed country, I think this is an important agreement.
Yes, and the Australian Prime Minister mentioned this, that this agreement actually will link Australia, will open Australia to 1.5 billion market.
Right.
One of the fastest growing economies. So they also look up to India, and the exports to India which they have in mind are already there, but maybe tariff lines will increase because we are now reducing duties. We are going to make it duty-free for 70% of these tariff lines.
Right, and they're saying duties on 100% of tariff lines will be eliminated. And of course...
For India, yes.
Absolutely, Jay. And also when we look at, this signing of this agreement and finally it's being passed by Parliament, is the first trade agreement for India with a developed country after nearly a decade. That by itself is an important indication.
Yes, but we have done a trade agreement with UAE, which you might call it what you like.
Okay.
But it's a very important economy, and its size and its export and its international trade profile is very significant.
Okay.
And we have a FTA now working with the UAE. Our foreign minister had a meeting with his counterpart, and he emphasized that point. So we are also in the RCEP, we are working on FTAs with all the other countries except China and New Zealand. So with ASEAN, we are working on an FTA. I think we have an FTA with ASEAN. And with Japan and South Korea also. We are vistas which we are going to trade on.
Right.
India did not join RCEP because of China. But with other countries, we have shown through these FTAs that we have, we are open to very free and intensive trade and economic partnership.
Right, and India is also a manufacturing hub. In fact, 96% of what we get from Australia, what Australia actually sends out are raw materials. So I think a lot of industries, which are the industries you think will primarily benefit?
Australian coal has been used by our thermal power reactors, and it's also used for other industries. And I think even fertilizers have certain element of it. Then they also export to us aluminum oxide in a very large measure, which again is part of our aluminum smelting industry. Then there is also gold import from Australia.
Okay.
so which we use to do value addition, and then we re-export. And we have gems and jewelry which are part of our export lines to Australia, and we import gold from them.
So we would be actually getting in high value, products, exporting high value products and reaching a high value market in Australia, which would then actually boost up our numbers.
Yes. Actually, Australia's relationship with China, for instance, if you see, it gives you a perspective. They have been exporting iron ore and coal and some petroleum products to China, and their exports are something like $159 billion.
Okay.
So it's a relationship where it is one relationship of Australia where their exports are more and the imports are less. They are importing less from China. Mm-hmm. Now, with us, the relationship will be more even, because services export, for instance, from Australia, education. Now, this is 118,000 or 116,000 Indians who are students who are studying there. Now, this is a very large component of the services which Australia, exports.
Right.
And they are going to facilitate this process by relaxing visas and by a number of announcements they have made.
Right. Many subcategories and subclasses have been included. You're right.
Annual quota of 1,800 for yoga teachers and Indian chefs, and post-study work visa for 18 months to 4 years for Indian students. This will benefit more than 100,000 Indian students. And work and holiday visa arrangement for young professionals. These facilitations are mark of, complete openness and trust in each other's country. This reflects enormous uplift in the mutual confidence between India and Australia.
Right. It's a great signal. Absolutely. In terms of how we see job creation within India because of this, where do you see that impacting? Because some of the industries that are going to get a boost in our exports to Australia are labor intensive, our gems and jewelry areas, and even the service sector, the IT, ITES.
Yes, actually the areas which have been mentioned, they are all directly connected. Textiles, leather, footwear, and gems and jewelry, as you mentioned, and machinery, engineering machinery. This will have impact on the Australian market. And this is something which is first time Australia has done, and it's not done for any other country.
That's a great beginning.
Opening this 100% line of tariff lines. This is new. And labor-intensive sectors, textiles and apparel, agricultural and fish products, furniture, sports goods, jewelry, machinery, and electrical goods.
Right.
Now, each of them is going to benefit our industrial, our manufacturing sector.
In fact, so when we look at employment generation, that's one of the key areas that India is looking at, even domestically, to see more stability. And we are looking at huge numbers in the future. Employment is a critical factor that has to work hand in hand. And I think that will be strongly supported.
That's true. The, export-oriented employment has its own version. Look at what China has done. Its growth was largely because of export-oriented employment. And our neighborhood also, many of these countries have benefited. We, for instance, have been somewhat hesitant and dilly-dallying in these matters. But now under PM's leadership, Make in India and manufacturing sector should be given a boost. And the private sector is also increasingly participating in this whole process. So this export-oriented labor market in India, employment in India, is going to be a big boost for our economy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sheelkant, for joining us in our program. Thank you, sir.